Welcome in, come meet my Bristol Bro. Anything from this to that, my Bristol Bro. So nice to introduce my Bristol Bro. Anyone from him to her, my Bristol Bro. Work with these hands, you see this hard form. Say with your chest, my pen is hardcore. Even at my desk, feel like a star-lord. And it shows how much we give it all for. Now it's time to give them all an encore. Till it's back to the drawboard. Welcome in, come meet my Bristol Bro. Anything from this to that, my Bristol Bro. So nice to introduce my Bristol Bro. Anyone from him to her, my Bristol Bro.
Welcome in, everybody. It is another Tuesday, which means you are hanging out once again with the Bristol Bros, Sam and James. I'm going to bring Sam in. What's up, buddy?
Brother, what does your shirt say?
Don't trust soup.
I don't get it.
That's the whole point.
All right.
It's a movie reference.
Okay.
Obscure reference.
I see. I'm one into obscure movies, and that's
it's to get that reaction.
I see.
That's the whole point. Well, we have a pretty killer guest tonight, don't we?
Oh man, do we? My boy, Mr. Dan Schlissel, he's a good friend of mine. Yeah, so I know Dan through, I guess I met him through Dave, West Coast Dave.
Okay.
And we became pretty good friends. He sat right across from me at Eddie Pecan. We both tabled Eddie Pecan and spent pretty much the entire weekend together and hit it off. And
awesome.
Pretty much our daily chat, text buddies.
Like you and me.
Daily chat. It's even worse than that, to be honest with you. Dan and I are like an old married couple.
There you go. I like it. Well, before we bring him in, I just got to say, it looks like the room is fully completed.
Yeah, just about. I believe it or not, I have more art I need to hang up. I have probably like another 10 pieces that need to go up. So like this wall over here, I have a Kiss banner up, kind of right there. You can kind of see, but that wall is going to have more art on it. Then right up above that, there's a closet door up here that has a bunch of space on it, and the wall right here behind the monitor. I have a vintage Turtles poster right here. Sick. It's from '87.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a Playmates Turtles poster. I got it at an antique mall in California probably 15 years ago. Pretty cool.
You're already running out of wall space, dude.
So out in this hallway, it's just lined with pages of art.
Nice.
So it's like, yeah, I have no space left, but I'm gonna make space. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You can make space. You can optimize. Awesome, man. Well, let's bring the man, Mr. Stand-Up Dan, in. Hello, sir.
Hey there. Thanks for having me, first off.
Thanks for being on, man.
Yeah, I was trying to hang my Minnesota Loon t-shirt high enough to be seen.
Oh, there you go.
I couldn't do it. So you get to see a hanger.
Right on.
Behind the magic.
Sam's been telling me a lot about you, so it's awesome to get you in here and get to hang out a little bit tonight.
Yeah, it's great to hang out. It's nice to meet you, and it's always good to talk to Sam.
Likewise, yeah. Sam, I'm going to let you take the reins a little bit, buddy, because, anytime we're featuring a guest that you know a little bit better than me, I like to sit back, observe, and learn. So I'm handing the reins over, bud.
Sounds good. So one of the things that I love about just Dan in general is just like encyclopedic knowledge about comics. That's something that I've always told you about.
Yeah.
So I guess for you, Dan, where does that kind of start? You're just kind of your deep knowledge just for comics in general.
I mean, I've gone through phases of being in collecting and being out of collecting, and it's through that. I started collecting basically in 1982 or 83 when I was, pre-teen into my early teens, because we moved to the middle of Nebraska from the East Coast. And I just really got into collecting. we had a comic book shop in our small town, and I started going there a lot. But it wasn't the only place I was acquiring stuff. I was picking, newsstands and supermarkets and anywhere that comic books were at, I'd be looking in my little town of Kearney, Nebraska is where I was at the time. And it just kind of grew, the person that owned the store, it was like a romance book, not like a thrift store for used romance books primarily. And she stumbled into being a comic book dealer. And, this is as Dark Knight's coming out and Thor with Walter Simonson and all sorts of cool stuff, and indie publishing sort of taking off. So it was a good place to get stuff. And then I was also picking stuff up through like giveaways from places like Oreos or whatever cookie. It was Oreos and some cereal or Skippy or something that was doing giveaways of comic books of like reprints of Detective 27 and Action Comics #1. So like I was always kind of drawn to weird stuff anyway, and it just was a natural thing. It wasn't, I didn't, as a 12-year-old, I didn't say I like weird things. This is different. This isn't just like more people in costumes beating the hell out of each other. But that isn't to say I was like an alternative comics guy. I just liked the indie stuff because it was a little, being a fan of Spider-Man or the X-Men doesn't really excite me even as a 12 or 13-year-old, I like the old stuff, but like even then it just wasn't the thing that, I don't really care about the soap opera parts of like Jean Grey and Scott Summers. I just don't care.
Yeah.
When I think of the stereotypical Dan comic, like when I think of you, Dan, the first comic that always comes to mind is Strange Sports.
You were there when I picked them up.
That's why.
Yeah. So like that's really along the lines. My first 3 comic books that I remember, because I still have them, is a brand new off the press, off the printing, or off the wire rack Star Wars #14 that I read so much that I had to restaple the cover on a couple times.
That's awesome.
The dog ears got so fixed into it that they fell off, and to me that's the most valuable comic I own, not because it's worth money, but because that's what pulled me in. So it was a crossover into something that was like a pop culture thing. And then I have Tales of the Green Lantern Corps #1, which I found out fairly recently was like a Bisley, not a Bisley cover, a Brian Boland cover, And then Charlton's War, The World at War. I think it was issue number 13 or 14. Dave just sold it. West Coast Dave just sold a copy like during the last sale. And I was like, that's the first comic one of the first comics I ever owned. And like 2 of those comics were purchases from the gift shop at a hospital while my dad was recovering from like some kind of surgery. So to me, comic book history doesn't really start the way it starts for most people. When you read the history of it, of like Max Gaines did this. To me, comic books, I think, became popular because it was a way, everyone used to read the newspaper on the subway and stuff. So you spend 10 cents, you give the kids something colorful to read. Kids like the funnies, they'll shut the heck up during the commute.
Yeah.
While I'm taking them to public school to drop them off.
That's true. I guess for you, where did it, like, because I know that you and I both have like a love for just weird underground, just obscure stuff.
Yeah.
So where does that kind of start for you?
I think it springs from being into the indie stuff. Like stuff like The Rocketeer, and then grew The Wanderer, which I was a Mad Magazine fan before I was a comic book fan.
Makes sense.
So I couldn't tell you what my first Mad Magazine was, but it was, 77, 76, 78, somewhere in there. And I know I had the Star Wars one, where they're all like doing a Broadway line dance thing. And it started with that stuff, and I think Mad sort of clued me in that the the adult world isn't entirely what it's made out to be. And then as I started to, not be a kid and start to be a young adult, I think that when I started picking out comic books from stuff like that, that's sort of where it came from. Because I didn't know about underground comics until a couple years later. When you're checking books out of the library, like I think it's Les Daniels, the comics, stuff like that. Histories of comic books are kind of what exposed me to the underground comics. And then I can't remember the year, but when Mouse came out, that was like a further expansion into that for me. But I'd been aware of characters like Fritz the Cat and the Furry Freak Brothers. I just never really read them beyond anything in a compilation.
That makes a ton of sense actually with Mad, and that same for me actually. Like I read Mad before I had ever seen a comic book before, so that lines up.
Yeah, it's funny because I think it was an adult that bought Mad for me, and maybe a cousin or my dad or my brother. And my brother wasn't an adult, but he was 7 years ahead of me. And just like, you need to read this. And then they're giving you the starters kit for like not going along with the mainstream. Like they're saying it's a thing for kids, but the thing that they're picking for kids is this like subversive middle finger to mainstream society.
Yeah.
I mean, one of their covers literally was a middle finger.
Yeah, I have a copy of that because I had to. But then they watered down the headline because it was supposed to be a middle finger, and it was supposed to say #1 in good taste.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody in the process of editorial changed it to be this totally meaningless sort of line that took away from the effect.
Do you have a lot of Mad, James? Or like, have you read it at all?
Read it a little bit in the past. Yeah. I have some of the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers and stuff like that from a collection that I got from a buddy, so I'm familiar with that. I have a lot of Gru stuff, a lot of Sergio Grona's Gru.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm familiar with a lot of the stuff he's talking about for once. I know when we get the underground indie stuff, sometimes Sam's like, all right, James, so here, let me tell you about this, and gives me a little education,
Yeah, that makes sense because it's hard to have a grasp on it all because it's so widespread and then it disappears.
Yeah.
When head shops go away, underground comics kind of die out. I mean, it takes a little longer than that, but like the actual distribution system is gone. And as a kid, you're not allowed into a head shop anyway back then.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I wound up trading away a lot of my Mad magazines as a kid to get comic books. I sort of regret that decision, but also I don't know how much I regret it because the world that the comic books opened up to me beyond the Mads that I'd already read very well, and the cracked magazines, and even the crazy magazines that Marvel put out. I kept a small stack of them that meant something to me from then. I have them downstairs. So I have like the special edition of Mad Magazine where they're talking about comic strips. And I kept the Flash Gordon cover for Crazy Magazine, Who Will Shave You Now? With shaving cream on Max von Sydow's bald head. It's just stuff that meant something to me I kept.
One of the things too, for just in terms of your brand, I guess for people out there that are familiar with what Dan actually does, owns Stand Up Records, which is a record company, focuses mainly on stand-up comedy, but does other things, very punk rock, just kind of, you do whatever you want.
Yeah.
You have a lot of artists that do work for you, which I'm going to grab a couple of things here in a second and show it off. But if you wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit and kind of what your thought process behind like recruiting who you're going to get to commission for, album covers and so on.
Yeah. It started kind of innocently enough. Stand Up Records is an independent comedy record label. We mainly focus on stand-up comedy, thus Stand Up Records. But we've dealt with some musical stuff, and there's been storytellers and other sort of stuff that isn't straight stand-up. I did a record with Firesign Theater, like a legacy reissue, and that's sketch comedy, specifically like radio style sketch comedy. But I fell into the artwork thing because as a collector, I'd been through 2 phases of collecting comic books by the time Stand Up Records had started. I went through my childhood phase that sort of went away when I went to college. And then after college, I sort of started getting into it again when I moved to Minnesota. Because I was alone for a while. My fiance and now wife was back in Nebraska taking care of final stuff. It took her about 6 months so that we could get married, and then she moved up. But in that 6 months, I started pretty heavily back into comic books. And one thing when I was a kid, like $20 was a fortune. And that was like, you might as well be $1,000,000 if it was a $20 item. There was no chance of me getting it. And then as I got older, it was like, oh, there's Mad Archive hardcovers. I'm going to buy those because I can now because I'm an adult and I have income, and it's not going to hurt me to buy this $40 book or whatever. And from all that, it rekindled this love of the actual artwork and being able to get the Russ Cochran EC collections that were all line art, black and white for the most part. And it made me want to be able to buy an original piece of art, but there was no way I could manage that unless it was as a business expense. And the only way to afford the business expense of it was to commission an album cover. Because then you're buying a piece of original art, but it's an original piece of art that you can use on your commercial release and thus potentially earn money back from in order to have justified the expense. So with that logic in my head, I approached the biggest white whale I thought I could get at the time, and that was Jack Davis from Mad Magazine, one of the big parody and satire guys at Mad, and the world's most ubiquitous illustrator in the 70s and 80s and 60s, and also one of the first EC guys that from the new trend. So it really meant a lot to me to be able to get him. And at first, when I approached him, his representative was like, no, Jack's retired. He doesn't want to do any more commissions. And then a couple of weeks later, I get a phone call from the agent, and they're like, Jack has reconsidered it, and he would like to talk to you. You can call him at this phone number. And it was near Christmas time, and the only thing I can figure out is that Jack must have seen a set of golf clubs that he really wanted. And, my fee would probably have covered it. So he agreed to it, and we had a long talk. He wanted to hear the album. He wanted to make sure it wasn't obscene because he didn't want to deal with obscenity. That's part of what he didn't like at Mad Magazine. So he didn't want to do that as an old guy. And I told him, I said, look, I'm going to send you the record, but there's foul language on here. I go, with your stance on obscenity, I just don't know if this is going to qualify. It might already rule you out. And he said, in this great Southern gentlemanly drawl, he goes, well, life is hard and language can reflect that. I don't mind that so much. I just don't want outright obscenity. And then I don't think he ever wound up listening to the album. And then when he said, hey, I'll be sending you something tomorrow. Give me your fax number. I sent him the fax number, and the next day I had a sketch. And then he called me. He says, what do you think? I said, I have some notes. He said, fax them to me. And I did. And the next day after that, I got the second round of sketch. Like, he busted that out fast. And the second round had it. So we approved, and he went to finish. And I wound up buying the rights to the art and the art from him. Now, it's probably the least valuable piece of Jack Davis art there is because he did it for some small label and not anyone famous. But it's worth every penny I paid.
Oh, no kidding.
He nailed it down. So I realized I could do it every once in a while if the budget allowed. So then the next person I pursued was Mort Drucker, because I figured get two of the big Mad guys. Mad is the reason why I do just about anything. I have a comedy record label because I was into Mad Magazine. A lot of when I was a kid, I read The Mad World of William M. Gaines by Frank Jacobs. And it meant the world to me. That book meant so much to me. And in the book, it said, if you send Bill Gaines a letter, he'll send it back to you, but he'll circle stuff in the letter and then go out to the margin and then rubber stamp it. And he has a tree of like 40 or 50 rubber stamps on his desk for this typical answers. So I sent him a letter, and then he sent it back, and he signed it. He gave me the phone number and said if I was in New York to give him a call and I could get a tour of the offices. And I wound up taking advantage of that, but I didn't get to meet him because it was Thanksgiving week when I was there. But I got to go to the offices. I got to go to the same offices that Bart Simpson went to in The Simpsons.
Oh, that's amazing.
But I saw the real version of it, and the fake version was pretty close to the real version.
That's awesome,
So,
man.
you know, I modeled a lot of my life on the way Bill lived his life, not the patronizing things so much, but like the caring about the art and making sure that people get paid, and, you know, standing on your own feet, and taking, you know, not taking a whole lot of grief, but also not taking a whole lot of things seriously, and even being a gourmand to some extent. And like, you know, I already loved food, so it wasn't hard to adapt that part of things. I love having fun, so it wasn't hard to adapt to those things. I love to travel. It wasn't hard to adapt to that. So a lot of it was a model for what I do. Now, granted, he had a level of success that I won't ever come close to, but whatever, you know, I've had a great life, and a lot of it is owed to, you know, that book and how the example that he laid down in reality.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that answers the question, though. I don't even remember the question.
The question was, you know, when you're recruiting people for art, kind of like what's the thought process behind like who you're approaching?
Well, to me, it was work with greats, and the reason. Let me not talk about the people now. Let me talk about the rationale, because it's what you asked about. Comedy it's a performing art, and to me, it is a real art. But to most people, it's, you know, a clapping monkey that you wind up and it plays cymbals until it stops. The spring stops. You know, it's just it's chattering teeth. It's a whoopee cushion. That is the reality. Is it's just kind of cheap, throwaway, no value really. But to me, I remember specific jokes that I heard when I was a kid vividly to this day. So to me, that's an art form that shapes and has merit, and it forms people, you know, like everything from Mel Brooks to the Marx Brothers to Lenny Bruce to George Carlin to Kids in the Hall, all of it. It all shapes you and gives you a way to survive when sometimes the world's a very hard place. So in order to make the emphasis that this was art, you have to not only have a good recording, but the first thing a person encounters with an album is the album cover. And in comedy, a lot of times, album covers and recording quality, they're all treated like garbage. I think that's a good way to put it. Sure. If you think about most 1980s comedy albums, it's like some shitty Photoshop job of a like brick wall and a guy like shrugging his shoulders in front of the brick wall, making a goofy face. And that's like 70% of album covers from the late 70s and through the 80s and into the like early 90s. And to me, that says that this is a valueless commodity, that every single thing looks the same because it is the same, and it's that same thing is junk. So if I want to make a statement saying that this is art, then there better be some art on there, and it better be high caliber, world-class art. Now, I don't get to do that on every album. Some comedians fight that tooth and nail, and that's a bummer. So I don't win on every album cover. Sometimes we use photos, and I'm fine with photos as long as the photos are shot well and get something across that isn't just in front of a brick wall. But that stuff bugs me, and I want to stand out as creating art. And that's how you do it, is you make art.
So for I guess your stand-up in general for the record label, are they like signed to your label, or are you like working out deals with them on like a special, basically like a deal-to-deal basis?
I mean, it depends. I mean, I won't put out a record unless I have a license to either manufacture it, or I am the one who has created it as a producer.
Sure.
So there's a little bit of both, but I generally do not want to be involved in projects that I didn't produce. Now, if I get to work with the Richard Pryor estate, which I did, I'm going to make that record because Richard Pryor is the funniest person that's ever performed stand-up.
No kidding.
By miles. Like no one touches him. So, I'll license that. And if they have specifications to the art, I'll go along with those specifications and I'll try and make it the best I can. And with Pryor, it wasn't bad because the art was really, really good. And they even worked with me a little bit on modifying some stuff. So like the third album, we used photographs for the black vinyl run. But then for my colored vinyl run and one that I did through Mondo, we had painter Jason Edmiston basically do an exact recreation of the cover, but then alter it to the estate's tastes because they didn't like that it was an exact recreation. The photo of Richard Pryor, we were too close to what the photo was instead of an idealized version of the photo, which was funny, but whatever. I still had a world-class painter do it, so we all win basically.
Yeah, looking at like the portfolio that you have, how is that dealing with estates and like families rather than dealing with like the artist directly? Because I've seen like you also have like Joan Rivers, for example, on there. So
yeah, with Joan Rivers, I didn't have to deal with the family. I dealt with the record label. And when you're dealing with the record label, sometimes it can be weird too, because that was, Sony Music basically acquired the label that issued that album originally. So as we're trying to get the liner notes together, I was going back to Sony and asking specific questions about the album. And sometimes they didn't have an answer for me because they didn't put out the album. They bought the label, or they either bought the label that did put it out, or they bought the label that bought the label. So their records weren't fully complete. So we had a little argument about the release date. And I said, your release date is wrong. And they said, you're going to argue with us about the release date? I go, yeah, I will. And they said, well, we're telling you what it is. I go, yeah, but Variety magazine from 1967 says it's this. And my bet is that Variety has it correctly. Because that's what their job was to put out news about new releases. So the guy was cool with me. It wasn't adversarial, but he did try to puff up a little bit when I did that. And when I had proof of it from the archives and sent him the link, he's like, yeah, you're probably right. Go ahead. And I know he's proud of that record. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but I've talked to someone recently who used to work with him that told me that he was very proud that we collaborated and got that done. I did that as a record store day record as a release, but I didn't put it out on vinyl. I put it out on CD because it had never been on CD before, but it had been on vinyl 2 different times. So I bucked the trend with Record Store Day by putting out a CD, which also they weren't thrilled about. But they worked with me well, but there was a little bit of grief back and forth in the process. Like, you're not doing a vinyl component? I go, no, I'm competing with, used, and $20 versus $6 is going to lose every time.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. So yeah, we did vinyl on that. And then I couldn't really modify the art on that one. We did a booklet that they approved of where we compiled history on it. We had a printing error in the booklet though, so I'm not happy about how that wound up, because it wasn't so bad that it messed up the release, but it was just bad enough to take away some of the flavor. And then one thing I did was I got to make a promotional poster for it, and I hired Mondo artist Oliver Barrett for that. And he goes, how do you want this? And I gave him photos from a specific shoot. I go, I want it from this shoot, but I want you, and this is 1967, Joan, so it's before a lot of plastic surgery. I said, do a representation of this, but make sure that she's absolutely beautiful. I go, do not be snarky, just make her look like this and the most beautiful version of it you can. And he knew what I meant because I used some Dave Stevens artwork as a reference. Not that he reference Dave Stevens at all, but Dave Stevens could take like Marilyn Monroe or Betty Page, who are beautiful specimens of humanity, and he could make them more beautiful than they were even. So that's kind of the reference I gave him on that.
Hell yeah, dude. Do you have any questions for him at all, James?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, Dan, what mainstream comics do you still look at, or do you like to collect, if any? Are you a Jack Kirby fan or anything like that, or?
Yeah, but Jack Kirby's not exactly making comics anymore.
Yeah, but as far as picking up the old stuff, are you collecting any of that?
It depends. When they put out that graphite edition of Destroyer Duck, I was super into that, because what I mainly like to collect in comic books at this point in my life is satire and parody.
Right.
Like, I don't want every satire and parody book there is, because some of them just frankly suck. And sometimes there's something to learn from that, but like Kirby pencils on something like that, I want to see that for sure.
Yeah.
I buy some art edition. I just got the smaller version of the Toshin. Toshin did those giant XXL Marvel books.
Yep.
Well, now they're doing some smaller versions, and I just got the Avengers Volume 1 in the smaller size, so I could actually hold it and manage it.
Yeah, the stuff they put out's monstrous. I have the Frazetta one, and it's like that thick, and it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a bunch of the Toshin stuff, but the smaller ones are more appealing to me because I don't need a desk and a book stand in order to read it.
Yeah, I feel you on that. And storage space.
I mean, my house is hoardery with the amount of books that especially since the pandemic.
Yeah.
It's a bummer to me to not, I have like a physical thing that makes it hard for me to maneuver. Right. So I don't get to put stuff away the way I would like to.
Yeah.
Makes it very aggravating.
I bet.
Yeah. But I still love books. So I'm still like acquiring stuff. Like just today, I got a book from Ian Cinco, his art book, and I got that Avengers book arrived. A shipment came from West Coast Day Avengers.
Nice.
And then I got a Alice Darrow's trade paperback and the Darwin Cook Batman Ego from In Stock Trades.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Sam, you got some stuff put aside that you're going to show tonight?
I can just hold it up real quick here.
You always come prepared, dude.
Here's one. Just show off some album artwork.
So, that album has a long story to it. That artwork is by Josh Mead, who goes by the name Meatbag. And the reason that artwork exists is because I had Ed Piskor do the original album cover art, but like when he did it, he didn't do it at size for vinyl because there was a little bit of issue between the comedian Daniel Lobel and his likeness. So when Ed redid it, he goes, I'm not redoing it at big size. So we did CDs, and then recently technology's been good enough that you could upscale stuff without having it go blurry.
Right.
So I did these covers, and I was going to send some to Ed, but then he kind of was taken from us prematurely. So I never got to give one of those to him because they got printed like a month before he was gone. So when the vinyl came out, I had Meatbag do those silk screens, and it's just a piece of paper folded in half, so like it unfolds like an old 7-inch cover. Yeah, it's blank on one side, printed on the other side. But once I could do Ed's artwork as an actual, LP cover where the record slides into it, I had those printed as well. Now the record goes in that, and that goes in the silk screen.
Oh, that's really cool.
So it's like a super deluxe package. And there's only like 100 of these records.
For all you kayfabe collectors out there, got to get it. Yeah. Only 100 of them printed.
It might be the only album cover that Ed did. I don't know for sure, but it might be the only one.
And then my favorite thing you've put out.
Awesome Snakes. That's a drawing by vocalist Annie Sparrows of Awesome Snakes. So Awesome Snakes are a great band. It's Danny and Annie from Soviets. So it's drum and bass. They both sing vocals. And all the songs are either about snakes or things that are awesome.
There you go.
Yeah, like when I first heard this, the band that I thought of was like X-Ray Specs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
except for without the saxophone.
sure. That's the vibe that I got though, or like girl school.
Yeah, yeah, but also like super sarcastic.
So this isn't yours, Dan, but I just kind of wanted to get your, I guess your take on it.
Oh God, here we go. High Anxiety. I never bought a copy of that because I thought there's only like one song in that movie. Why do they make a soundtrack?
So this actually has songs from all of his movies on it. It's
I
not
see
just
that
High Anxiety. Yeah.
It has some dialogue too, right?
Yeah, so it has like there's a whole thing on the gatefold about history of his movies.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get a copy.
But yeah, dude, this is incredible though. Like you can find this on eBay for like $5.
Yeah, and that's the thing about comedy is that it's easy to collect for that reason.
But yeah, this is incredible. Mel Brooks is like my all-time favorite. So
Hard not to be. I went and saw him do a monologue and Q&A session after a 50th anniversary screening of Blazing Saddles in Los Angeles. I flew out to LA to see that.
Yeah, he's still so sharp and on top of things too, and funny as ever. It's awesome seeing his current interviews and everything. I'm excited for the next Spaceballs movie.
We'll see. I hope it's better than the History of the World Part 2 or Part 3 or whatever.
Yeah, it gets tough with sequels, doesn't it?
And also with people trying to live up to what Mel Brooks does effortlessly.
Yeah.
You can hear the effort from other people. You don't hear it from him.
Yeah.
He is the Baryshnikov of comedy, light on his toes,
Absolutely.
doing all the moves perfectly.
what's your favorite Mel Brooks film?
I mean, it has to either be Young Frankenstein or Blazing Saddles.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Young Frankenstein has so much going for it because even Blazing Saddles, even then the film industry was starting to shrink. And people who had been making movies for, 40 years at that point in time were starting to retire. So you're getting to use these cinematographers and lighting directors and special effects people and Foley artists that they knew everything, every single trick there was to a 35 millimeter camera and how to shoot with it. So you would get these things that people they just can't reproduce now. I mean, think of every shitty Universal imitation thing you see in black and white nowadays where they're trying.
Yeah.
Those are the people who worked on Young Frankenstein. Like all of the electronic equipment in Dr. Frankenstein's laboratory was used in the James Whale movie. So, all of Carl Strickfaden's electrical effects, those were the electrical effects used in Young Frankenstein. So you don't get better than that. That's the exact same stuff. And they were when I was a kid, I got to go to Universal Studios. My folks would take summer vacations and we would go all over the place driving. And we went to Universal Studios in Los Angeles and they had a makeup and special effects show and they had the Strickfaden gear on stage doing all of the Jacob's ladder and the crazy,
that's so cool.
Van de Graaff generators and all that other stuff. And seeing that firsthand when you're like 8 years old, 7 years old, 9 years old, somewhere in there, it makes a goddamn impression,
Yeah.
It had to be during when they were filming The Hulk still as a TV series, because that's when we were there.
Outside of the artist edition books, do you collect any original art?
I do. I'm
figured.
really into, and I don't want it to sound like I'm a wealthy dude just throwing cash everywhere. During the pandemic, I travel a lot for my work. And during the pandemic, there's no travel.
Right.
So I had a travel budget that I wasn't using. And I, talked to my wife a little bit and I said, I'd like to specifically collect some original art. I've never been able to. I've had art made for me, but I've never collected original comic art. And she said, what are your goals? And I said, well, I'd like to have samples, not necessarily directly from these comics, but I'd like to have samples of a lot of the EC guys.
Right.
That's what matters to me the most. And she said, do you think you can cover it? I said, and I showed her, I'd been already keeping a spreadsheet for 3 or 4 months at that point in time where I was keeping track of every piece of art on eBay and on Comic Art Fans and on anywhere else I could find it, and like showing her that it was broken down by artist and by expense.
Mm.
And I said, if I look at these pieces, like I can see where the bargains are, so I can piece it out that way if I do it carefully. And a lot of these guys, like Ramita Man and Albert Moy and people like that, like you can arrange for payments to happen, like a layaway plan.
Yep.
And as long as you're paying, they're cool. So I started to assemble a little portfolio of art by EC mainstays, like almost all of the EC mainstays. I have some kind of sample, whether it's like a little cheap Topps illustration or, I have a sketch I got of Johnny Craig's for $100, and it's of his sort of co-host for EC Comics named Drusilla, who looks a little like Betty Page. So I have this, sketch that I bought for $100, which you can't really sneeze at that price. It's not like costing you a mortgage. You're not.
Yeah.
I don't have anything that is so high dollar that it would, cripple me if it disappeared.
The one thing that I can think of that I know of that's in your collection that James might be jelly of is the Funny Man. Right?
Bunny Man. You're gonna have to give me
Funny.
Oh, Funny Man. That's recent. Yeah. So Siegel and Schuster. Yeah. I have a page. Yeah. I don't do it much anymore because the economy has slowed down tremendously in the last, year.
You don't say.
Months. Yeah. I mean, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
But I don't peruse all of the websites anymore. I'm not actively looking for art because don't know where things are going to go. Don't know, like, I live in suburban Minneapolis, and it is bonkers here.
Right.
My favorite burger shop's like 2 miles from my house. One of the cooks was kidnapped on his way home from work. No one knows where he is. And it's that kind of stuff over and over and over and over. I'm only giving you one example. It's been a month of like insanity where you wouldn't be able to process it. So I'm not really buying a lot of art, but I was perusing a heritage auction, and I don't know what pulled me into it. I think it might have been it must have been a Howard Nostrand piece I was interested in, and we can come back to that in a minute. But while I was looking through, I decided to go and look through the whole auction to see what was there, just to see, like, is there something else I might want to bid on? And there were 2 pages of Superman creators Siegel and Schuster's follow-up project once they got fired from Superman that is called Funny Man. And Funny Man, there's been a trade paperback of some reprints, mostly historical information, and a little bit of incomplete reprint of the comic book saying that it's the first Jewish superhero, which is not true. Superman is the first Jewish superhero.
Yeah.
But Funny Man basically looks like Danny Kaye, the actor. And his persona is like he dresses normally, but then when he fights crime, he he takes his outfit off and reverses it to clown clothes and puts on a rubber nose, but otherwise looks exactly like Danny Kaye and fights crime. And it lasted for 6 issues. It flopped hard, but there were 2 pages in this auction from that. And both pages individually were under $500.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I mean, that's where they ended, was each one was under $500 on its own.
Wow.
And I did not buy both pages. This other page the page I didn't buy went for significantly less than 500. And mine went for slightly less. And the one I bought has like some good girl art on it. And it has Funny Man. And it's beautiful. It really is a beauty of a page. And I don't know how to put this to you without trying. I'm trying to not like get teary eyed,
Yeah.
but like, there's no way I couldn't afford a $20 single volume Russ Cochran reprint as a sample when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So like, I had to save months for that. Right. So now I own a piece of art by the people who made Superman.
It's
And
unbelievable.
there's not a world where this makes any sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah.
I mean, like, first off, 13-year-old me is doing cartwheels, but like, it also like doesn't make sense. I mean, it's neat. It's really neat, but it's really a tough one to absorb.
I mean, it's awesome that the page still even exists to begin with,
Yeah,
you know?
no kidding.
Yeah, I've been reading so much about history of comics that I realize that any golden age page anymore is lucky to exist, because there was a tragedy in the San Francisco Bay Area that wiped out pallets and pallets and pallets of like prime Jack Kirby
Yeah.
and all sorts of other art. And the fact that any of this exists at this point is a miracle, let alone a piece of art that's, from 1948. I think, yeah, 48. It was 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unreal.
It's
unreal.
unreal. 100%, man. I can't even imagine. I am, you're right, Sam. Little jealous now.
I'm a sniper. Like, when I see something and other people haven't recognized it, I go for it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's surprising that was going for so little.
Shocking. The page that I didn't buy went for under 300.
Wow.
Jesus.
And that doesn't make sense either. It's like, what are you people even thinking?
Yeah.
Now, granted, mine had a woman, skimpily dressed in it. So I didn't mind paying more for it, not because I am a perv, but because I mean, I'm not 50s, man. It doesn't. But like, to get a pinup art piece of art from Siegel and Schuster seems exceedingly rare.
Yeah.
And very, very cool. And I've basically come to the realization that almost anyone that worked in the comics in the 30s, it wasn't codified. Like, even as things were forming, they weren't formed. These guys were actually basically outsider artists who found us a grift to get paid to make art. They're lucky they found comics. They hunched over a desk and drew in their non-organized, crazed styles.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's that stuff from the 30s that really informs the art of the underground 30 years later.
It's true. It's like you got Chester Gold and,
Basil
Will Eisner.
Wolverton, Fletcher Hanks, I mean, Siegel and Schuster, even Bob Kane, who mostly didn't do his own art. Look, I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to get into Stan Lee versus Jack Kirby.
Yeah.
But love Bob Kane or hate Bob Kane, the first 3 issues of Detective Comics were drawn by him.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have people because he hadn't had success yet. He had something that was looking like it would be success. So, there's no original art from those comics. And I stumbled onto a whole story of how Bob Kane had proof sheets of most of the 6 pages of Detective 27. And he left them in a trunk in an apartment building and moved out. And some other dude saw the trunk, like dumpster dove it, cracked it open, found these proof pages, and then kept them until 2011.
Holy cow.
And those are those are proof sheets from a press. And that's the closest we have to original black and white art of Batman. When you look at those proof sheets, you can go to Heritage and look them up. You can zoom in on them pretty hardcore and you can see halftone in the original art. And it's like, you can see all the hash marks. I mean, they had gag panels that Bob had drawn before that in that same trunk, also in that auction. So you can see that, oh yeah, he got better from the gag panels to Batman. But you can also see that those pages of Detective 27 are not the stuff that everyone else made for him that he put his name on. And it's that outsidery aspect of it that I mean, of the art that gives me a charge, man. It's like, I don't even know how to put it. It just revs me up.
Oh no, I feel you. Like you and I both have like a love for like Jack Jackson and
Yeah.
Pat Moriarty, like that kind of stuff. You just look at it and you're just like get juiced up, you know?
It's that stuff like the Don Simpsons and Sergio Aragonez's of the world, and you know all the greats that are no longer with us, and then like including our dearly departed most recent pal Ed, but like the Jim Ruggs, the Brian Mosses, the Jim Mahfoods, the Michelle Fifes, like all that's the Ben Maras, all that stuff. Just really, what they're cranking out, I am picking up because I get a charge from it. You know, Kickley is another one a recent artist who I like a lot. And you know, it's all this stuff just sort of gives me a charge. I also, you know, even from the period of time where I don't really care about the mainstream comics, I love John Byrne, I love Walt Simonson, Frank Miller is a god, David Mazzucchelli, Brian Boland. I mean, there's all this stuff that just Kevin O'Neill. Like, I always like the auteurs, and those auteurs always have this Robert Crumb in the Undergrounds and Spiegelman and Justin Green, Carol. I can't think of her last name right now. I can't think of her name, and I feel stupid. The Trina Robbins, Ramona Fraden, Marie Severin, they all have this. Matt Baker, these lines that just give me such a charge. And because of that, like, it's hard to focus on one thing that I really like to collect, even in satire and parody. I find myself following these auteurs into all sorts of other stuff that I normally wouldn't be into. And then you go to cons and you get to meet people. Like, meeting Sam was great. It got me into the White Line Deadline, and you know, Ryan Smith was sitting behind me and he was awesome. And Ian Cinco was great. And Dev Little. And it just, Brian Moss puts up a new piece, and I'm just so thrilled to see the piece. Michelle Fife shows any drawing of his, and I just cannot. It's almost like seeing food and salivating as a reaction. Whatever that visceral thing is that art does for me, it does it. And that's the thing that I'm really kind of pursuing in my collecting, and it's led to this crazy stack of books that I might not even ever get to all of them, but just acquiring them and knowing that I have them on the shelf like a wine cellar is like, it's satisfying, and it gives me an, you know, my job as a producer, there's no other way to put this. I'm a curator. I'm a creative director. You know, that's what I do for my work. Basically, I manage a brand, and it's a super douchey way to put it. And some of the super douchey things that you have to say, like what I do is basically called trend spotting now. But like, I don't scientifically study something and go, "Ooh, I've got to get into this." I see something and there's a visual appeal to it that grabs me. And then I have to know everything I can about it. So I wind up acquiring a bunch of stuff and reading as much as I can. But in the process of acquiring, you learn a lot just by needing to know what it is that you're picking up. So like, that's how I keep I'm not a comedian. I don't go on stage myself. I'm not even I used to be the recording engineer for the label, but I physically can't anymore. So now I don't even do the actual audio recording myself. I bring in an engineer who then listens to me as the producer as to what I want. So like, my job is to coordinate all that, but in order to keep a creative vision, I'm constantly absorbing. And comics is one of those things that's just an endless way to absorb, because almost everybody passes through it at some point or another.
Yeah, it's never ending.
Have you guys seen that Kickstarter Terror Rat yet?
I have Sawblade. I haven't gotten on it yet.
Haven't seen it yet.
That shit is nuts. I backed it the first day that it came out, but yeah, like that shit is nuts.
Yeah, and super inspired too. That's the thing that makes it great.
Yeah, like once you see it, James, you'd be like, it makes sense why I would back something like that.
I have a feeling, yeah. I'll know right away.
It's just like, It's hard to describe the art. It's just very like Faust, I guess the way to look at it, just
Okay.
like blood getting slung everywhere,
Yeah,
black
yeah.
ink. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I think Ed and Jim picked up on. They called it outlaw artists, but like if there's a lot of ink on the page and there's even a modicum of talent, there's something that's a visceral reaction that happens with that
Yeah.
to a
Totally.
viewer, at least to, it maybe I'm spoiled. Maybe it's like old white dude thing. I don't know. I just know that I have that thing. Growing up in the 70s and 80s, art was on everything. There were trading cards everywhere. Every gumball machine had line art on it, skateboard decks, coffee cups, posters, subway ads. You go to a magazine like in New York, they had the classic newsstand still when I was a kid. So it wasn't just even on the street, the newsstand, which now just sells snacks, but there would be stores where you'd go in and be like a shotgun room, and one wall is like floor to ceiling magazines, and every subject had at least 2 magazines. They had the main magazine and then the knockoff. And if it was a really popular thing, you'd have a bunch of them. So like, you'd have Black Belt, but then you'd also have like martial arts magazine, or you'd have some
Yeah.
other thing. Playboy, Penthouse, Time Magazine, Newsweek. It was just like that. And bubblegum wrappers had art on them, Every single thing had some kind of disposable, ephemeral line art. And every one of them was just like, I've got to follow this colorful thing to wherever it leads me. Yeah, I'm going to send in Bazooka Joe wrappers. I don't want to send them, but I'm going to send them because who
Yeah.
knows what thing they're going to send me.
Yeah.
Like all that stuff, it just you put that low with the high of going to museums, and it just is like this intoxicating mix. And I can't put pen to paper. I mean, I can, but I can't really draw. It's not my desire to draw, but I can hire somebody that can draw. And I can give them an idea and say, what do you think? You think you can make something of this? You used to have to be the Catholic Church or a duke or a king to be able to afford to bring in Michelangelo to paint your ceiling
Yeah.
for years. But now you can just be some jackass in Minnesota. And I qualify there. So
Have you had Mr. Mafood do anything for you, or considered having him do anything?
we're talking a little bit. I
Nice.
basically want him to I do a series of stickers where I'll have artists redraw my logo in their style. So my logo was designed by Shepard Fairey, the one that's at the beginning intro of this
Mhm.
video. So I was very lucky and got to hire Shepard Fairey early on in my comedy career. And now I have comedians artists do their interpretive take on that logo. So like Skinner's done one, and Tony Millionaire's done one, and animator Bill Plimpton's done one. And I just had Greg and Fake from Santos Sisters do one. So I'd like Jim Mafood to do one as well.
Yeah, that would be really cool. I'm really looking forward to Arachnid Enforcer coming out.
Man,
Can't wait.
I even I'll pick up old stuff of his, just, I know it doesn't really directly support him when you're buying used, but he's one of my guys, and he's so
Exactly.
awesome in person.
Yeah.
Fife too. Fife's great. Fife did a logo version for me, but he did it in black and white, so I'm going to try and get him to color it sometime this year.
Nice.
Gotta love Michelle.
Yeah, there's not a single thing he does that doesn't really kind of trip my trigger. He's got really innovative take on things. I had him draw Submariner for me because Submariner is one of my favorite old school mainstream characters.
Oh, cool.
And he's like, oh, I never drew Subby before. And then he turns, I can send it to you guys offline, but it's like such a crazy, it doesn't look like it would work, and yet it totally works. It's like Kirby-ish and not Kirby-ish and more modern. And
well, that's so cool, like giving an artist something that they really haven't tackled before, and then seeing what they come up with. I've seen West Coast Dave do that a lot with his stuff and stuff he requests, like his Darth Jar Jar and everything, and all the different interpretations have been so cool.
Yeah, it's just neat to be able to pull stuff off.
Yeah. Yeah,
This is what I was
definitely.
digging for. Look what I found.
Oh, there
Yeah,
you
man,
go.
that's great. It's an early one from him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just weird. Like, why would Marvel ever allow this to happen?
Because once in a while, Marvel will pull a stick out of its rear end.
Yeah.
I mean, why would they give Jim and Tom Scioli and Eddie the Grand Design franchise? Yet they did, and I'm glad they did because it made me interested in those characters again.
Yeah, definitely.
Speak of the devil.
There you go.
Absolutely. Mine are downstairs with my Russ Cochran sets.
Have you ever seen these before, James?
Oh yeah.
The Treasury editions? Dude, they're
Yep.
incredible.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah,
super cool
like I'm a
stuff.
mark for anything that's Eddie's. So like now I'm into the super rare, hard to find stuff, and that's really hard to pick up because you don't really see them very often.
The
Yeah,
most
especially
rare
now.
the most rare thing that I have that he's in, there was a yearbook from the Kubert school that he was in.
Oh wow.
Oh, cool.
It's like an anthology, and it's
Is
like
that
everybody that graduated that year does like a page or whatever in it, and I have that.
that's not the first folio, is it? That's older.
No, it is the folio. It's one of the Kubert folios, but it's not the first one. That first one came out like Andy Kubert is in
Yeah,
there, so it's like around like the early '90s when that one came out, and I have that.
I might have you shoot the cover for me and send
Mm.
it to me later so I can at least see it because I don't know if I'm familiar.
You
But
see it floating around on eBay every once in a while, and it's like $300.
yeah.
Oh wow.
You know,
Yeah, and even then sometimes you can figure out angles.
Yeah.
I'll just put it that way. I'm a real good hunter of stuff. Don't always get what I want, but I'm a real good hunter of stuff.
Sounds like it. Given you have Schuster and Siegel pages.
That was through an auction house. That wasn't even like, I didn't go through any weird, email chain with a guy who doesn't have a price defined or anything like that.
Right.
That was just straight up. It was for auction. I was the winning bid. I would have ran that one up a ways too.
I was gonna say, yeah. Yeah, would have been hard not to.
It was extremely hard not to because, again, it just doesn't make sense to even have it. But
Yeah.
I'm glad I do. And it's not the most expensive piece of art I ever bought by a long shot. I bought a painting by former Replacements drummer Chris Mars. That was way more expensive
Oh wow.
years ago.
oh, yeah. All right. Well, we're probably gonna start wrapping up here, but did you have any like thing that you wanted to promote in terms of like any records that are coming out or anything, any new releases recently that you kind of want to point people towards?
I'm working on a Jimmy Schubert album that probably won't be out for another 3 or 4 months, but the album cover is going to be done by Angelo Torres of Mad Magazine, who is 94, I think.
Lord.
Yeah, and still like a really great caricaturist. He's slowing down a little bit just due to age and all that sort of stuff, but he's a super friendly guy. I've gotten along with him over the last couple of years and really happy to have him doing it. Jimmy Schubert's like an old school act from Philly. Like he's the kind of comedian that like if you don't laugh, he'll go out in the crowd and tickle you if he has to. But he will get you to laugh, period. And I think that's great. I want to promote, the 3 Richard Pryor re-releases that I've had out for a while. The color vinyl versions, if you order from the label, come with trading cards by the Chew's own Rob Guillory. And then I did this box set of 5 important records that my label issued called The Headliners. Has Hannibal Buress and Mark Maron and Maria Bamford in it, and a long booklet and a slip mat and a bunch of prints and stickers and stuff. Really cool limited edition, 100 of those. And then with this producer Jason Klom, I issued there was a comedian in the 60s named Dick Davey that sort of was a mystery guy. He disappeared after MLK was assassinated, basically. That kind of removed the crux of his whole career, and he kind of left a big enigma to who he was. And Jason was researching this, so there's a big booklet about all of that, and he wound up finding the guy's niece who had demos that had never been released, so we did a vinyl release of those demos.
Very
Awesome.
cool. All
And that
sorts of cool
artwork
stuff.
on that one's by Tony Millionaire. And the box set cover art is by artist Brent Schoonover, who's worked with Marvel and a bunch of other places.
Very cool, man. Well, I've learned a lot, and it was great getting to hang out with you today.
Yeah, absolutely great. Thanks for having me. Hope I didn't make anything too boring.
You son of a
not,
bitch.
Not at all. Not at all. I'm just, it's going to take me a while to get over the jealousy about that page, but I'll
wait till you see it later.
I'll work on, I'll be prepared. I'm going to steel my nerves to see it and get 10 times more jealous.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. If you keep an eye out, it's crazy what you can see.
Yeah. Well, awesome, Dan. Sam, obviously, I don't even have to put your website up anymore because you just put it in your name box there. Make sure you guys go support Sam, buy his comics.
Sam McClurg, if it stays the way that it is, right there.
Other shoulder.
Oh, okay.
It's flip. There you go. There you go.
Sorry about that. Oh, and also I should say standuprecords.com for me.
Yes, I put it across the bottom for everybody. Sam put it in the chat, as well as your YouTube and Instagram. And Sam, we got to remind everybody that we're doing something different. There's going to be 2 lives this week. Our bromance continues. We're doing a Valentine's Day special live this Saturday. And you've been making some stuff. I'm going to give you the big screen here real quick, Sam.
So I got a piece that I've been working on the last couple of days for Dummy Zine. Don't be a dummy and read dummy. Yeah, John is a good friend, also an acquaintance of Dan's, but he sent me some stuff recently. We're going to be looking through. If you guys don't know Dummy Zine, you should. Basically, it is a historical magazine, fanzine. This has something in front of it, but this issue specifically was for, just pull it out real quick.
Yeah, show it.
This was the very first issue that he put out. If I can get this thing to come out, there we go. And it was the art of Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Oh, cool.
So he has a connection to like alternative underground cartoonists. So Gary Panter is a good friend of his, and Gary Panter was the art director on Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Oh, wow.
Gary Panter is somebody that I've told you about that was a big influence on me.
Yep.
So you can, but yeah, it's just like sketches, drawings, information, just all sorts of stuff. So yeah, we're going to have him on the show Saturday. Yep. And talk about Dummy Zine and all of the things that are coming out. He has a 3rd issue that's in the works, and it's going to be focused around Dan Klaus and Peter Bagg. So,
yeah, Saturday, Valentine's, Bristol Bros, the first ever. Maybe we'll make it a thing. I don't know. Bristol Bros Valentine's Day special with Mr. John from Dummy Zine is going to be with us 11 a.m. PST. Make sure you guys tune in, and thank you again, gentlemen. It's been fun.
Thanks so much.
All right, guys. See you on the other side. Have a good one.
Bye, everyone.